friends. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, we got to make sure the tubes are working. We always have the little moment of truth when we have to test some of the changes that we've made. We made a couple of other audio adjustments in the stream after the show yesterday. We were having some audio problems. And how are we doing today? Are the tubes working correctly today? Hopefully they are, because we had a little an auto gain correction problem yesterday. I think it was a Windows update problem. So if you're out there streaming, if you're out there doing any content creation, check your auto gain correction on your Windows update. That's what did me in yesterday. So we got it fixed. Hopefully turn that puppy off, and it looks like the tubes are connected. That's tremendous. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hang on a second. Got to adjust that tube right there. Good, good, good. Good, good, good all around. So let's get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about Donald Trump's trial in New York. He showed up there in person. We're going to get into it because not only was Trump very fired up today on the day's testimony, but he also had an expert there who was also fired up. So there were some pretty good fireworks there today, some feisty exchanges that we're going to get into. We've got Trump making several statements to the press. He kind of showed up, said something in the morning, showed up after that. We got footage from inside the courtroom. There were many different breaks. You can see he came out and he was talking about what the expert did. There was an appeals court ruling that came down from the Supreme Court, and he had some comments on that. He says, we're winning this thing in the appellate division. And so there was just a lot of activity. And as per usual, we're going to go over and hear about this guy who testified today. His name is Eli Bartov. He's a professor of accounting. I think he's made like a ton of money in terms of his witness, and he got cross-examined about that pretty hard. He's an expert witness, so they pay you for that. And so he got a big chunk of cash to come in and testify. He kind of got beat up about that, but he was also fired up because they were saying, you just were basically a paid expert. And he says, hey, the truth hurts. Sorry, Tish, but you guys, he scolded them, should be ashamed of yourselves for bringing these charges. And so it sounded like it was a fun day there. We'll see what Trump said and what our friend Klasfeld is reporting on. You can follow him at Klasfeld Reports. We also then are going to turn our attention over to what's happening in Judge Chutkan's courtroom. Judge Chutkan issued an order that we know was denying Donald Trump's motion to dismiss the case based on constitutional grounds, based on prosecutorial misconduct, the selective vindictive prosecution, those types of things. And we're going to see that Trump is now appealing that. Okay, so he's appealing her motions, her order denying their motions. And simultaneously with the appeal, which is a very good thing, we're going to see that they are also asking Judge Chutkan to stay the proceedings. All of them. Everything needs to be stayed. And so they filed this one. It's about 11 pages. We'll hit the highlights on it, and then we'll see what CNN says about all of this, because Jake Tapper, as per usual, is saying that Trump is going to wreck America. So we'll see what's going on over there. And then lastly, in our final segment, we're going to turn our attention to what's happening over in Florida, see what's going on there, because there were several filings, and Donald Trump and his co-defendants, Walt and Carlos Oliviera, Walt, Nauta, Carlos Oliviera, they have submitted a motion. They also want access to the classified documents. This is Florida. We got a classified document situation here. And they say, we want access to it. And you're asking, well, why? Well, it's because Jack Smith says that they were involved in the obstruction, right? If they had access to these things, if they basically could maneuver them around, then that means they should be able to know what the evidence says, what the evidence looks like against them. And so we're going to see what they say. Then we'll turn over to MSNBC's favorite show called Inside Jen Psaki. I don't know why they named it that, but she had Pencilneck on there, Schiff, Shifty Schiff. And so they had a conversation about, MSNBC type stuff, which is, a lot of fun. So we've got 3 segments to get to today. We'll see what else pops up as we go through it. This morning, we had a great members only stream talking about the debate. Nikki equals corrupt. Ramaswamy was out there throwing elbows. So we did a full debrief on that this morning for our membos. And then that, of course, will be segmented out and then published on the main channels later on in, well, hopefully tomorrow. So those will be coming soon, and we'll take a look at those. And so shout out to our members. We love our members and our members-only morning streams. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes on the show today, it's very important that we're all healthy. Now, we know that the holidays are coming up, right? Hopefully you got your presents, your lists all situated, but we also got to think about all the dessert that's coming in, right? Apple pie is not a vegetable food group. It's not a fruit food group, okay? It's a dessert. Doesn't count. And even though it tastes amazing, it is not one of the 5 recommended servings of fruits and vegetables that you're supposed to have. Now, the Mayo Clinic says that if you want to help prevent heart disease, if you want to lower blood pressure and cholesterol, eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And I know that's almost impossible for a lot of people, but that's why you need to check out Field of Greens. Now, every fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was medically selected by doctors to support your vital organs like your heart, lungs, kidney, your immune systems. Holidays are here, and you need to stay healthy. And plus, you'll notice that your skin, your hair, nails, things are going to start looking healthier too. And Field of Greens is the simplest way to get those daily fruits and vegetables, and it tastes amazing. Even try a little bit of sparkling water in there if you're feeling little rambunctious. So let me get you started. 15% off your first order. Visit fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert. Code Robert is going to save you that 15% off your first order at fieldofgreens.com. And of course, I always want to make sure that you understand that this is a statement that has not been evaluated by the FDA. They didn't evaluate this. And the product here is not intended to cure, treat any disease or prevent any disease or anything like that. But we know the vegetables come bursting out of the ground. They want to be eaten. Look how happy they are. And so you'll make their dreams come true. And this hairdo has also not been approved by the FDA. It should, though. You know, it's pretty good looking, I think. So anyways, my friends, check it out, fieldofgreens.com. Now, we also have our website. So if you're interested in any of the PDFs that we're about to go through, those will be posted and available at robertgovea.com. You can also sign up for our daily newsletter there, where you can get all of the show reports delivered right to your inbox. And there's also a mind map video tutorial if you want to learn how to use the mind map. robertgovea.com will explain how to do that. Stick around after the show if you're a member. We'll be doing our after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, which is where we hang out and debrief all of the day's activities. And we love our members. We do member streams in the morning. We do Saturday streams. And so we will not be here on our member stream tomorrow, though. That's a bad promo because I've got another personal commitment, but we'll make up for it. And so that, my friends, is where we can find us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right. Now, let's get into it. Donald Trump showed up in New York pretty fired up, as was his expert witness that we're going to hear from during today's testimony. Eli Bartov, a professor of accounting, was there. And at one point during an exchange right before the lunch break, Klasfeld says that the AG blasted his testimony when he was on the stand, said, "Your Honor, this guy's purely speculative, and he's just been hired to say whatever it is Trump's team wants." But Bartov snapped back at Tishy and her lawyers and said, "You make up allegations that never existed. You should be ashamed of yourself talking to me like that." Ooh, so it's a spicy day, right? That's the witness. We'll get into his full testimony. But Trump was there, and he had several comments as well. We also had a very brief opinion come out from the Supreme Court of New York. We'll take a look at that. But you can see Trump was there inside the courtroom, and before he even walked in the courtroom, he had a little something to say to the press and to the media. And so we'll take a look at what he said here. You can see he's flanked by Alina Abba on his left. On his right is Christopher Keese, and he's speaking with a whole cadre of people standing there behind him, saying we're going in this trial brought by Leticia James, and he's fired up, ready to go. Here's what it sounds like.
Top people right under the Attorney General, put him into the District Attorney's office, also put a man into the State Attorney General's office, Leticia James' office. Happened to be the same man. This is coming right from the White House. This is a disgraceful situation. The country's never seen anything like it. But this expert witness, highly respected by everybody, with a resume that few people have ever seen before, said there was no fraud, there was no accounting fraud, there was nothing. And this is what we're doing here while people are being murdered right outside on the sidewalks and the streets of New York, while people are experiencing horrible, violent crime at levels that nobody's ever seen in this city before. This is what the Attorney General is spending all the time on. So just to put it finally, who's going to continue to testify, but I don't imagine he's going to be changing his basic statement. His finding is that there was no accounting fraud whatsoever. The statements that we put in were very conservative. They were the opposite of what they said. The accounting fraud, and the fraud was on behalf of the judge and the attorney general, who took assets and made them numbers that were fraudulent. As an example, Mar-a-Lago. As an example, Doral in Miami. As an example, 40 Wall Street and others, where they cut the values to a level that nobody's even imagined. You take a look at Doral and look at the numbers that we're talking about for Doral. But the most obvious of all, because of the fact that people know it, is when you value a place like Mar-a-Lago at $18 million when it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. We had an expert witness in the other day. He's the biggest broker in the country for luxury properties.
We covered that
ultimate expert, actually. What is that? He valued Mar-a-Lago at over $1 billion, and the judge valued it at $18 million. The judge doesn't know the value of Mar-a-Lago.
$18 million.
The attorney general is the one that convinced the judge to say that. It's a fraud. The whole case is a fraud. What they've done is they've weaponized justice, and this is coming from the White House, because I'm beating Biden by a lot.
That's true.
And
they're not happy
this
about
is
that.
coming right out of the White House. You know it, I know it, and they know it. So just to end this, the expert witness, one of the most highly respected people in the country for doing this kind of work, found absolutely no accounting fraud. This case should be ended. Also, the judge, as you know, was rebuked in that he was overturned by the Appellate Division of the New York State Supreme Court, which is a higher court, a much higher court than where we are right now. The judge refused to acknowledge it. This case would be over, because that was about 90% of the case, having to do with statute of limitations. This case should be over. This case should have never been brought. This was a political witch hunt by an attorney general who's out of control,
Who ran for
and tried
office
to get
on
elected
this.
governor and failed.
Yep.
But this is a political witch hunt, and our country should be ashamed of what's going on. But we will probably go forward, and I'm sure nothing will have any bearing on what this judge does. It's a very sad day for our country, because people are coming in, we can say this every day, and we are totally innocent. This is weaponization of justice. This is something that nobody's ever seen to this extent. It's called election interference. It's a sad day for our country that a thing like this can take place. I'm sitting in a courthouse instead of being in Iowa, where I should be, even though I'm leading by about 40 points. Thank you very much.
All right, so big statement from Trump right there, about 4 minutes, and he was lacing into everybody, right? This is shameful, and I couldn't agree with him more. It is weaponized attacks by the legal system against him, and this is just one venue. There's many others, including the 4 criminal charges that are spattered around the country. So that is what Trump said outside the courtroom. We also have a little scene inside the courtroom from cameras that were there, and we always look for Tishy to see if we can identify if she's there or where her caboose is.
Comments that are worthy of analysis, which we'll get to in just a moment. At stake here,
There's
$250 million at least, and control of his business empire. $250 million is how much New York Attorney General Leticia James wants Trump and his sons to pay after they were found.
They get scooted out of there. All right, so there's Trump in there with the signature red tie, looking good, looking strong, and they were there today while this guy was testifying. His name is Eli Bartov. Nice looking gentleman. Here is a little bit of background from him from the bio on his website. This is from NYU Stern, biography from this guy. Joined Stern back in 1992. See a little bit of a photograph there. You see that he's the professor of accounting at New York University's Stern School of Business. He's an award-winning researcher and teacher, and he's an internationally recognized scholar. Pretty good witness. Now, his research focuses on financial reporting, executive compensation, the role of social media, forensic accounting, stock price formation, mergers and acquisitions, and so on. Right here is his list of qualifications, different awards, selected publications. Yeah, nice job here, right? So he's got some good stuff out there, and he's obviously somebody qualified as an expert. So let's take a look and see what happened in the testimony, and we've got a couple different transcripts here, excerpts from Klasfeld Reports. Klasfeld Reports, you can follow at Klasfeld Reports on the X platform. And here is what he said happened today in New York. He says, all right, Trump arrives in court. Says he's looking slightly downcast. He looked pretty good to me. Now, minutes before the proceeding began, he said he walked straight to the defense table and he's flanked by his lawyers, sat down next to Alina Abba and Christopher Keese. Said Trump just made a makeshift press conference outside the courtroom before entering. We heard some of that. But now Eli Bartov enters the courtroom and takes the stand. Now, Bartov's testimony begins with a description. He says, yeah, I'm very qualified, as you can see here. Got a lot of stuff, a lot of background here. I do all sorts of accounting, mergers, evaluations. I'm a smart guy. I'm a professor. Now, as we await the substance of his testimony, he says that he already was involved in a pretrial deposition. Okay, so this guy was already somebody who's been interviewed by Tishy's prosecutors, and says that he testified at a pretrial deposition saying that he backs Trump's case, saying that financial statements are inherently subjective, right? There's differences of opinions about how these things work. There's not one person's objective take of a person's financial status. Trump has a position on his financial status. So does the bank. They're able to meet midway and come to terms, which is exactly what they did. But Tishy's saying, no, her interpretation is better than the two private parties because she's a government person, and that's how they think. So the word subjective appears in Bartov's affidavit 28 times. So Klasfeld has a copy of it and says the New York AG says that Trump fraudulently inflated those financial statements, right? Now, Trump's experts say, no, he didn't. He undervalued it. And Trump's experts have generally argued that he had broad latitude on valuations. Okay, Trump can make his claim. The other guys can make an opposite claim. Now, the New York Attorney General's response to all of this is that these things are not subjective, okay? It says Trump's New York penthouse, the size of it is an objective fact, is what she says. And the existence of third-party appraisals is another objective fact. Well, maybe the existence is. But again, you also could have disputes about property sizes, okay? This is usable space. This is not usable space. This is undercover. This is not, right? There's like generally accepted principles and practices, and other people might have different valuations of things. That's why it's called a valuation. That's why you have people who are appraisers. Anyways, so this is how Engoron, he says, characterized it previously. This was yesterday. And Engoron said, look, I don't care about whether properties are overvalued or undervalued. This was Engoron's own statement. Because Trump's expert came in the day prior to this expert and said that actually Trump undervalued these properties, right? He actually got a loan, for example, based on collateral of $500 million, which let's say was Mar-a-Lago at the time, but actually it was worth $650. So Trump undervalued it, and Engoron says, well, I don't even care about the valuation. Only thing I care about is whether documents were fraudulent or not, because valuation, he might lose the case. So he needs to find something else to hang his hat on. So then the judge is saying, all right, he's going back through his credentials. He's saying, I'm highly qualified. The judge is like, I still don't know if you're an expert yet or if you're just a Trump hack or something. But the judge continues, and finally he gets qualified. Qualifications and distinctions. That's where we are right now in Bartov's testimony. We may be here for a while, he says. And so he's going through that whole CV. So then they say, all right, Trump's lawyer finally gets to it and says, how many times have you served as an expert witness before, Mr. Bartov? He says, gosh, I don't know, 16, maybe 18 times. Been a long time. And then the government wants to chime in. Okay, so they're laying this foundation. And then the government says, Your Honor, I'd like to voir dire this guy. He says he's an expert, but I want to know if he's an expert about these issues. The judge says, perfect, dig into it. So then Tishy's government prosecutor says, Louis Solomon, his name is Louis. He says, all right, here, Eli, I want to know, have you ever helped banks make a credit decision? Have you ever worked on the opposite end, like for a big conglomerate bank or something? He says, no. He says, well, then I'm going to object to Bartov being qualified as an expert on any credit analysis, since he's never helped a bank form a credit opinion, therefore he's not qualified. And the judge says, well, all right. Well, I think he's pretty close. He says, I am going to qualify him on financial accounting and credit analysis, okay? Just because he didn't help a bank doesn't mean he can't qualify. So he obviously knows that there's some bar here. He says he's got some qualifications. He's credentialed enough. So then Engeron says, and by the way, the reason I'm going to let him in is because there's no jury here. He says, he's thinking to himself, I'm going to already rule against Trump anyway, so what do I care? But says, so there's a much lower bar for admissibility. So your objection's noted. I'll take that into account. So then question begins. Once the foundation is laid, he says, okay, you're qualified as an expert witness, and now he comes in. Trump's lawyer says, Mr. Bartov, you did a bunch of investigation on this case, right? Yeah. And you prepared a big fat report for us? Yeah. Can you just summarize for us all? What is your main finding of everything that you've done here today? And this is something that lawyers will do, right? They'll start at the top. What's the final line? And then they'll unpack the whole thing. What did you conclude? Bartov says, well, my main finding is that there is no evidence whatsoever of any accounting fraud. Nice job. Perfectly done. Okay, right answer. No evidence whatsoever of any accounting fraud. And that was the judge's big hang-up. He doesn't care about valuations. He cares about financial documents. He said Trump's statements, Trump's interpretation of what he's worth is fraudulent. This guy says, not at all. No evidence whatsoever. Dude's qualified. What do you mean? Can you explain? Eli? He says, certainly. So I went through his report and I looked at a bunch of things and I couldn't find a single GAAP provision that was violated. We know GAAP from prior testimony is generally accepted accounting principles. I couldn't find one. Everything looked good. He says, in fact, evidence shows that Trump estimated that the square footage of his New York penthouse at roughly the 3 times its size, right? And Bartov says, well, because they're drawing the sting out now. So Trump's attorneys are saying, well, you said there's no errors, there's no violations. There's nothing wrong that was fraudulent, right? No violations of GAAP. But what about this thing that Tishy keeps complaining about? This idea that he's got a bunch of overly estimated square footage, for example, in New York. What about that? It's 3 times the size. Isn't that fraud? And Bartov says, well, no, I mean, I looked into that property. Obviously, it's a triplex. The price was inflated. There's no question about that. But he says that's just an error. Okay, that's just an error. And, errors like that are not unusual. So I'm not even worried about it. Okay, well, errors happen all the time, right? It's complicated accounting. So then there's a morning recess, and we're back. Now, Adam continues reporting. And let's pause and see if we get any other Trump statements. We have... Trump came out, and I think this might be the same actual clip as earlier, but it's hard to tell.
Horrendous Attorney General put forth.
Yeah, that's the same clip, I believe, from a different angle. But this is where Trump talks about a powerful ruling, okay? So this just came out now. He's sitting in court, and he comes out and he says, hey, we just got this really nice ruling. We'll take a quick look at it and see if we can unpack it. But here's Trump during one of the breaks.
Appellate Division, New York State. Just gave us a very good ruling. Appreciate it. I think the country appreciates it. Businesses are watching this case. No business will move back into New York. No business will, frankly, stay in New York. A lot of businesses are talking about leaving New York because of this action. It's a very serious action because it's a Marxist type of or form of trying to steal your business, trying to take your money away from you that you worked for many, many years and your assets away. So we were just given, and I think it's a great thing for the country, a very strong decision by the Appellate Division. It just came down this moment, so you'll look that decision up. It's very powerful. I want to also mention the expert witness who's so highly respected is on the Nobel Prize Committee for various things having to do with finance.
Wow.
I think that's very good.
Yeah.
But he's a very strong witness, a very powerful witness, and a highly respected person. Thank you very much.
Who won the debate last night? Thank you, Trump. Yeesh. Thank you, Trump. All right, walking back into court after another recess. Everybody's piling back in. All right, so we'll get back into the afternoon session, but let's first take a look at what he mentioned there about that appellate ruling. So I had a couple things on this. first of all, we did pull up the ruling, but there's not much information in it. So we're going to see what this report tells us. This is from Lisa Rubin. She actually dug into this. She says, a New York appeals court continues the stay of Engoron's order that canceled Trump's business certificates. Okay, so there's different counts, there's different claims here. One of the things that Engoron did is canceled Trump's business certificates. He said, you can't do that. We got a business operating in New York. And so part of the ruling is staying the cancellation, so putting on hold the cancellation of the business certificates, but denies other relief that was granted to the Attorney General after its summary judgment, widespread fraud in the financial statements. So in other words, it sounds like it's but mostly maintaining the status quo, right? And it's not really adjusting things too much while the appeals continues. And this is really what it looks like when we take a look at the document. This is from the Supreme Court of the state of New York. So you see this one literally just came out, right? Trump was sitting in court, and this is what he was talking about, 9:53 in the morning. And so it comes back down from the attorneys. And he's happy that the cancellation of the business certificates is not reversed, right? It's like, okay, cool. So things are still status quo. Good. So you can see this is Tishy, Leticia, and people of the state of New York versus Trump and everybody else of the Trump organization, including Ivanka Trump as the defendant. And says here, appeals having been taken to this court from the orders of the Supreme Court, the New York entered back in September, and on October 5th, says Trump, the defendant appellants, moved to stay the enforcement of the orders. They wanted to stop the orders and a stay of the trial pending a hearing and determination of the appeals. Okay, so the trial is obviously not going to be stayed. We're in the middle of it. Now, upon reading and the filing of the papers with respect to the motion and due deliberation having been had thereon from the Court of Appeals, in this case, the Supreme Court there, it is ordered that the motion is granted to the extent of continuing pending and hearing determination of the appeals, the interim relief granted by a justice of this court and is otherwise denied. So most of the status quo, it looks like, is staying the same. And Trump is happy about that because they could have reversed it and come back, down upon him. And so that is what the order looks like. Lisa Rubin explains what this means practically is that the provisions of the below order are enforceable, and that if Judge Jones is the agreed upon receiver of these businesses, right, once the businesses are canceled and stuff, then stuff happens to it, then Trump and his co-defendants are going to owe her a bunch of information and advance notice about that later on. So it's it sounds like it's preserving things for the most part, and Trump is happy about that maintenance. So that is what is happening there. Now, he says this clip, he says we won at the appellate division, and then we'll jump into the afternoon session. This is where Trump is speaking about the sham charges and the witch hunt that's taking place there in Tishy Leticia's courtroom.
About 90% of the case. We won this case at the appellate division, and this judge refuses to acknowledge the appellate division. He said very specifically, we're going forward because there's something wrong here. We won this case. Remember this division, and this judge refuses to acknowledge the appellate division. He said very specifically, we're going forward because there's something wrong here. We won this case. Remember this. Just put it in your heads. This case was won at the appellate division, and the judge refuses to do what the appellate division demands he do. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. When you win at the appellate division, that's your high court. The judge has to be bound by what their decision is. But we won at the appellate division. Part of that victory was Ivanka was not having to put herself through this, and they ruled that. But the bigger part of it was that about 90%, because of statute of limitations, about 90% of the case disappears. So remember this. We won the case at the appellate division, the high court, and this judge refuses to acknowledge that victory or that demand. And that's very serious. So we're going in now. We have an expert witness, one of the great experts in the country, and I hope you'll all be able to listen to him. But it'll just be another day. If you look at the case, we did nothing wrong. There were no victims. The bank loves us. The bank testified. They love us. We did absolutely nothing wrong. We never even defaulted. We never had a default letter sent to us. The bank said we were a perfect customer. The bank didn't even know why they were here. And yet you have people being murdered outside. All over the streets they're being murdered. There's violent crime. And this Attorney General who's crazed. She's a lunatic. The Attorney General sits here because she knows that she has a judge, and no matter all the evidence, that judge is going to rule in her favor. He ruled against me before the case even started. The case hadn't started. He knew nothing, and he ruled against me. The other thing is this. He valued Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, because that was good for her case, at a value of $18 million, when in fact it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. Nobody's ever seen anything like it, but just remember what I said at the beginning. We wanted the appellate division, and this judge refuses to honor that victory or that decision or that demand.
Mr. Trump, why did you say you were a dictator? Did you watch the So there you go, the defense before the court.
All right, Trump did a great job there explaining this expert. Alina did a great job also supporting him. And so this is what it looked like there outside the courtroom. Now, that was from the morning session, so those clips were reversed there. But let's take a look now at the afternoon session and see what happened there from Klasfeld reports. We do have some continuation here. Now, before the lunch break, something went down. The AG's counsel yelled. One of these lawyers over here for Tishy, who I don't see in the courtroom back there, said something like, "Your Honor, this Eli Bartov guy is just someone they hire to say whatever it is they want. He's not even honest." How do we know that? Is because Eli Bartov got $500,000. Woo, that's some nice super chat, man. It pays to be an expert, you know what I'm saying? So they paid roughly $500,000, 520 grand, maybe a little less. You know, sometimes you have to round up. But that's a nice chunk of change. And so they bring this out, right, to go in and say that this person is biased. They're just being paid off. They're just paid hacks, which is always curious to me because it's interesting. It's like, hey, aren't these people, isn't their entire salary coming from the government, right? And isn't their entire position now to prosecute Trump, which is what their boss wants them to do? So they're kind of like captive, you know, like they say that expert witness for the defense are like captive sheep or something, you know, like they are just little immoral, lacking in integrity people who just get paid off. But these people are sucking at the government's teat every day, every day, every day. And so if Tishy says, you prosecute Trump because that's what my campaign requires, they got to do it, man. So they're as biased as anybody, right? And they're political as well. And, you know, for some reason that never feels like it's a conflict of interest or anything, but whatever. All right, so this is what happens here. So Bartov, he swore in an affidavit that he's making $13.50 an hour, which is nice. And he spent 250 hours on this expert report and 150 hours on the rebuttal report. He says, well, a little bit less. And, you know, those hours were probably inexact. Here's a question from the depot. Hey, Eli, how much money did you make on this case, man? A lot? And he says, well, sorry I interrupted. Yeah, so maybe, you know, maybe another 25 or 30 hours, maybe. I think, you know, I don't know, include it with the 400 hours, but I think overall, yeah, I spent about 400 hours, okay? Everything included up to today. And so just in rough math, that's what, about $520,000? He's like, yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of money, okay? I did a lot. So if it costs this one guy $500,000 to investigate this case, how much do you think it costs for all of these knuckleheads over here, all of these government bureaucrats, these prosecutors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then some, right? They've all got assistants and staff, and they've got, you know, just gobs of government benefits and healthcare and dental and all these things and paid vacation, like 100 million holidays off. They're government bureaucrats, all right? So what is it costing them to review all of this? Like, they all know the details of Trump. And, you know, obviously they're not, being billed at $13.50 an hour, but it's a lot of resources, right? So Trump obviously has to spend some money in order to get somebody to come in and review all the materials. So they try to turn it into a big something. You can see we're spending a lot of time on it here. But that doesn't include any compensation since July. And so Bartov, he says he's taking the stand. Bartov is sitting there, and the attorney general gets up, and they're tallying this whole thing up, right? They got their calculator, and like, hey, don't you make this much money? And they're just bitter as hell because they're mostly miserable with their lives because they work for the government, which is like this self kind of perpetuating slow motion disaster because they kind of, you know, become like embedded with the government, like they kind of morph into it, almost like the Borg, you know? It's hard to like unplug yourself. So they just hate it that somebody's an expert and they're making more money than them in the private sector. And so they tallied up all the things. They put up, and you're making this much money? And so they said, so just the rough math is 520,000. And he says back to them, hey, you're quite the mathematician there, buddy. Nice job. They teach you that at prosecutor school to use a calculator? Wow. So then he tallied up the hours and his rate, and he calculated. He's like, yeah, good job. You know how to use an Excel spreadsheet? Congratulations. So then as of least of last July, he says, yeah, all my compensation has been paid. I've been paid, obviously. Trump pays his bills, all right? This isn't, what do you think we're dealing with here? Letitia? No. So Bartov, he said, well, what did you do for all that money? It's like $500,000, man. That's a lot. What'd you do for all that money? He says, well, I reviewed hundreds of statements of financial condition over the years. That's obviously a lot. And he adds, you know, I've never seen, he goes, and speaking of these financial statements, by the way, Mr. Prosecutor, I've never seen a financial statement that provides so much details and is so transparent as this one. Trump's financial statements are tremendous. They are the best. They have a lot of information, and you know what I mean, like a lot. And so it's very transparent, has everything that he needs. He says, you know what? Let me just double down on that one. There is an awesome amount of information in them. That's why it took me so long to review them all. He says, you know, I've never even seen a statement that provided so much information as Trump's financial statements of condition. Trump's statements of financial condition. This is incredible. It's like got, you know, Molly Gaston from the January 6th case would love it. There's like highlights in there. There is tabs in there. There's all sorts of other, you know, documents and roadmaps in there. It's like just a beautiful thing. Never seen anything like it. It's like as beautiful as Mar-a-Lago if you've ever been there, which is worth $1.5 billion. Looking at the judge. So here, another defense expert called Jason Flemings, Adam points out for us, he argued that Trump's financial statements weren't fraudulent because they disclosed how unreliable they are. And Trump also made note of that, okay? In the statements of financial disclosure, there is a big disclaimer in there where he said, you shouldn't rely on these. Like, do your own due diligence. This is what I say I have, but don't take my word for it. Do your own due diligence. And guess what happened? The banks did that. And so he said that specifically, and that's like not even a complicated thing. So you see, this continues on, and it looks like that is near the end of the trial testimony. As we see Klasfeld reports, he said here, there were different valuations at different points throughout the trial, but the experts that Trump provided testified that real estate valuations were more of an art than a science, and Trump had wide latitude to make different projections on his financial statements, and that is not fraud. They also shifted the responsibility, they said, for scrutinizing those financial statements to accountants, like other people. Now, we've had different people come in and testify. Flemings testified at a prior testimony. Giulietti also testified. And let's see if we have anything else to close out the day, because they were wrapping up over there. And here, it looks like we're back. So Klasfeld says we're back here. And looks like he had a nice donut out there. So we have here an awesome amount of information. So Wallace interrupts a speech. This is the government. And says, will you stop? He says, you know, there's no question pending. He says, at some point, this witness must follow the rules like everybody else. So this guy's just talking. He loves to talk about it, but he's like, Trump's incredible. He was still going off this one. Awesome. He's like, it's really incredible. Like on page 7, I want to tell you the story about something that Trump put in his awesome financial statement. The guy's like, can you shut up? The judge instructs Bartov, Engeron. He says, will you be quiet, please? Only answer the questions that are posed to him. And he looks over at Allison Greenfield. He's like, what do you think about that? I took control. You like that, don't you? So in an email from December 23rd, 2011, they show this email. They say, you recognize this, Eli? Looks like an email from Thomas Bowers, the ex-head of Deutsche Bank, the American Wealth Management Division, and said Trump had among the strongest personal balance sheets that he ever observed, along with the absence of personal debt and a huge asset base. He said, wow, sounds like it's pretty good, pretty solid, pretty nice fortified financial statement and situation over there. Now, Adam had looks like a Hanukkah sandwich today. So shout out, and says delicious, by the way, afternoon recess. Now, he tells us that we're back after lunch and the Attorney General's questioning continues. Now, they object to a line of questioning and the defense withdraws. They ask it differently. But he says, the testimony here has been pretty problematic. The testimony from the afternoon session has been stop and go, frequent objections from the AG's table. This guy's not an expert about this. This guy's not an expert about that. And the state also argues much of this is cumulative with the defense's other experts. And so it sounds like that's kind of where things left off on the day. Klasfeld's reporting starts to trail off there. And it sounds like Trump and others will be back for more because Donald Trump is still on the queue to testify. And that looks like it's going to be scheduled for next week. So we'll see if there are any other updates, my friends. That is Eli Bartov testifying, and we'll wrap up with the rest of it. We'll see where things finished off when we get a little bit more updates on what happened there in the courtroom. But this is Trump. They're fired up, blasting Tishy, expert witnesses saying that these were the most awesome, incredible financial statements, tremendous, that you've ever seen, and that there is no evidence of fraud at all. So that is Trump. This is New York. We'll be here continuing to follow this case and the rest of the Trump trials, my friends. Thank you for hitting that subscribe button and joining us as we do. And thank you for checking out robertgovea.com as well. If you want to read any PDFs that we go through here or sign up for our daily newsletter, robertgovea.com is the place to do that. We'll be looking forward to seeing you there and here on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, that was over in New York, but let's turn our attention over to the January 6th case because this one is also a good one, and this is going to be asking for the entire case to be stayed, to be stopped, halted, while we await the Court of Appeals. Donald Trump files a motion to halt the January 6th case to put a stay on Jack Smith's prosecution that's taking place out of Judge Chutkan's courtroom. We know trial is scheduled for March, the day before Super Tuesday, and we also know that Judge Chutkan has issued orders denying Trump's motions to dismiss. He's already filed several of these, one for a motion to dismiss based on constitutional grounds, saying Trump had free speech on January 6th, and nothing in the indictment is violating the law, and said that there were other bases for why the case needed to go away. Now, the judge denied that, and so Trump has issued an appeal, which is this document. It's the notice of appeal on the motion to dismiss. We'll look at it, very short. But the more substantive filing, the one that's going to cause Jack Smith and everybody to be in a little bit of a tiff on this, is the motion to stay the entire case. Because if the Court of Appeals rules in favor of Trump on this constitutional basis and the whole case is dismissed, then it's gone, right? Trump wins and it's done because the violations were so egregious. But that means the trial doesn't go. And if the Court of Appeals comes and takes this away from Chutkan, then all their eggs essentially are in this basket. They got to get this trial to start in March, and they're working hard to make that happen. So Trump is asking for a stay, and what happens if the Court of Appeals grants it? They're not going to be happy about it. So we're going to go through both those filings and then see what Jake Tapper says about the J6 case and the 404B motion, which is the character evidence motion that we talked about here earlier in the week when the government submitted that. But briefly, this is the order that was the notice of appeal that was submitted out of the Washington, D.C. court. You see, out of the United States District Court, it's just a simple one-page filing. It is the notice of an appeal. It is not the actual appellate memo, the memorandum, or the brief. It's just a notice. And so all they're saying is, guess what? Your Honors, President Trump is here providing notice that he appeals to the United States Court of Appeals for D.C., the memo, opinion, and the order, both of which we covered here previously. And you can check out our January 6th playlist if you want to catch all of the Trump January 6th prosecution playlist, if you want to catch all of the videos for that. So said that these motions, these orders are now being appealed, signed by John Lauro and Todd Blanche. And there's a sequence that is happening here that we're observing. Okay, Trump has to make these things anchored in before and rejected, okay, because Chutkan is going to reject this current motion. This is the notice of appeal, but filed simultaneously with that is this document. This is President Trump's opposed motion to stay the proceedings pending the appeal. So while he filed that one, he's saying, Your Honor, we're going to be appealing this thing, so we got to stop this case. Jack Smith is already opposing this, obviously. They want this trial to go because this is their big one. If they can get Trump convicted of a felony, they're going to splatter that all over the place. A felon! The Republicans nominated a felon. Can you imagine that and where this is going? And they're going to do the Chris Christie line. He's not even going to be able to vote for himself. You know, that type of stuff, which will be true. And maybe they'll try to imprison him, like no joke. Maybe they'll try to lock him up somehow. Now, I'm really doubtful about that because he is the president. Can't imagine the Secret Service would do that. And I don't think America would stand for that, quite frankly. If they say Trump's going to jail, I don't know how that would work out for him. But we'll see. And of course, we're always encouraging everybody to stay absolutely peaceful and patriotic. But we understand that certain things might get a little bit, heated if they say, we're going to be imprisoning Donald Trump, which they would love to do, don't get me wrong. So this is Jack Smith opposing this because they need to keep this in queue. So Trump is respectfully submitting this motion. Chutkan will deny it. Then Trump will appeal this one. Then the Court of Appeals might be able to actually stay the proceedings. Say, hey, we're going to grant an interim stay on this or an administrative stay on this. So we're just following the bouncing ball. So here is Trump's defense. They say, all right, we're submitting this motion for an order enforcing the automatic stay of all the district court proceedings in this case. This is Chutkan's courtroom. In this case, pending the final resolution of the recently filed appeal from the court's December 1st ruling based on presidential immunity and double jeopardy, constitutional arguments and presidential immunity. Now, the filing of President Trump's notice of appeal has deprived this court of jurisdiction, which is pretty bold, right? Saying, hey, Chutkan, you don't even have the authority over this case anymore. When we filed this document, this notice of appeal, it's not yours anymore. It's going to the Court of Appeals. Jurisdiction over this case in its entirety. Court is gone, pending the resolution of this appeal. Sorry, Judge Chutkan. Do you think she's happy about that when she's reading this right now in her chambers? No, not at all. So therefore, Trump's defense says a stay of all further proceedings is mandatory and automatic. Sorry, Judge, whether you like it or not. They're going to explain it. They say, moreover, last week in another case called Blasingame versus Trump, which is something that was situated out of the D.C. Circuit Court, which we read here. This was the immunity case. The D.C. Circuit made clear that official immunity issues must be resolved prior to litigation and discovery on the merits. And that was on a civil case where the people are suing Trump. Congress people and the various Capitol Hill police are suing Trump. We also talked about that one because the court basically said that Trump can be sued or that the case is not going to be dismissed at this stage, that it's going to proceed to the next status. We made a video about that one. So they say, thus, in addition to the lack of jurisdiction here, sorry, Chutkan, you don't have jurisdiction, Blasingame, which also came out of the D.C. Circuit, which is Judge Chutkan's courtroom, requires the court to stay all proceedings, saying your own court made a similar finding in a parallel case against this defendant. So you have to stay all proceedings in this matter pending appeal, including but not limited to all this stops, right? We're done. Pretrial motions, defense disclosures related to trial defenses, any evidence, SIPA hearings, jury selection, all of it is now paused. Now, as a result of these authorities, all current deadlines must be held in abeyance until, at minimum, this motion is resolved. Now, President Trump will proceed based on that understanding and the authorities set forth herein, absent further order of the court. Woo! That's some good motion there. Okay, in other words, Judge, we think this is the interpretation of the law. Once we file our notice of appeal, it goes up to the Court of Appeals, your jurisdiction is now set aside, and we now move up to the Court of Appeals. We're going to be going this direction unless you tell us differently. Now, they're baiting the judge right now, right? When you see that, absent further order of the court, what is going to happen is Judge Chutkan is going to come back out and issue a further order, okay? She's basically going to have to. And she's going to say, no, my position is the position of this court. And here, she's going to say that this date is confirmed, and this date is confirmed, and this date is confirmed. And that's going to cause Trump to then take that appeal that, and ask for an administrative stay of those dates, to move those dates around. So here is what Trump's defense says. All right, Judge Chutkan. On October 5th, President Trump filed a motion to dismiss the indictment on grounds of presidential immunity. Now, then on October 23rd, Trump filed another motion to dismiss the indictment on constitutional grounds based on double jeopardy and the impeachment judgment clause. We've covered both those motions here. Now, on December 1st, the court issued a memo opinion and an order denying both of those motions. The court incorrectly denied Trump's claim of presidential immunity on the grounds that such immunity does not extend to criminal prosecution for a president's official acts. And the court also denied Trump's double jeopardy claim on the ground that neither traditional double jeopardy principles nor the impeachment judgment clause provide that prosecution following impeachment acquittal violates double jeopardy. And we read through that in detail. Now, their argument here, now Trump says, okay, well, we got those orders on December 7th, which is today. President Trump filed a timely notice of appeal of this decision, and we read that notice. So here's the argument. They say, all right, Judge Chutkan, this is the deal. You're out of jurisdiction. You don't have any ability to control this any further. It says the Coinbase and Blossomgame decisions illustrate that proceedings in this court must be stayed pending the resolution of President Trump's appeal of the court's order denying his motion. Okay, Trump said, I'm immune from this. There is double jeopardy here. And said that, yeah, double jeopardy here because he's being prosecuted after he was already acquitted. Okay, he was acquitted in the Senate on January 6th, and now he's being prosecuted again. So this stay is jurisdictional. It's not discretionary, Judge Chutkan. It's mandatory and it's automatic. So you're done. You're done. And judges don't like that. Now, he didn't say you're done, but that's what he's saying. Now, in Coinbase, the Supreme Court considered whether an interlocutory appeal, so meaning an appeal in the middle of a case, for most criminal cases as a standard rule, the appeals come at the end because you don't have a bunch of other ancillary collateral consequences in the middle of a criminal trial. For example, you don't have presidential immunity claims in most criminal cases because you don't have presidents ever being charged unless you have Democrats who are running the country and prosecuting their political opponents as they are here. So here, what is, the Supreme Court asked a question, can you appeal in the middle of a case? The Supreme Court held that whether there's an automatic stay of proceedings when an interlocutory appeal is in place. The Supreme Court said that it does. There is an automatic stay. The sole question here is whether the district court must stay its pretrial and trial proceedings while the interlocutory appeal is ongoing. The Supreme Court said that the answer is yes. The district court must stay its proceedings. Now, in that case, Coinbase, who won the argument, they said the automatic stay is just a straightforward application of long-standing principles. If you're appealing in the middle of a case, it makes sense to pause the underlying event. It requires an automatic stay of the proceedings that relate to any aspect of the case that's involved in the appeal. So here, right, so in that case, applied to a motion to compel arbitration, the Supreme Court held that the entire case, if the entire case is essentially involved in the appeal, then you got to pause everything. And therefore, the entire case must be stayed. Like, can you only appeal a portion of it and then deal with it later and then send that back down and then integrate it back in? Yes, but not here. If the entire case is enveloped in it, you got to pause the whole thing. This is because the key question in that case was whether the case belongs in arbitration or instead in district court, right? Major question. They're not asking about a small evidentiary question, which you can save to the end of the case. But they're asking, like, literally, what court are we supposed to be in? Is it supposed to be arbitration or is it supposed to be a district court? The exact same true holds here. This is a major question. They say, Your Honor, President Trump has appealed the court's rulings on his motion to dismiss based on presidential immunity and principles of double jeopardy. Both issues concern whether this case can be brought at all, okay? It means the entire case is essentially involved in the appeal. Because if he wins on double jeopardy, it's all gone. If he wins on presidential immunity, same thing. They say presidential immunity is immunity from suit, not just immunity from liability, okay? And this is another important distinction as well. Having immunity doesn't just mean that you get to like deal with a bunch of nonsense lawsuits, okay? Because the process is the punishment. By suing you, by prosecuting you, you've got to take time, money, resources, energy to go respond to those things. And so you're immune from even the suit so that you're not out of anything. So when a party appeals, they say, the denial of a motion to dismiss based on official immunity, the question, quoting from a U.S. Supreme Court case called Coinbase, the question when there's a motion to dismiss based on Trump's immunity is whether the litigation may go forward in the district court is precisely what the Court of Appeals must decide. Here, as elsewhere, it makes no sense for the trial to go forward while the Court of Appeals cogitates on whether there should even be a trial in the first place. And so Coinbase explicitly recognizes this conclusion. It cites appeals of official immunity and double jeopardy as uncontroversial circumstances where automatic stay of proceedings is required. In other words, Coinbase in the Supreme Court, this is a great case for them, is recognizing this, saying in the circuits that have considered the issue in the analogous contexts of qualified immunity and double jeopardy, when you have qualified immunity, other immunity, not presidential immunity, but like for police or for other politicians, and when you're considering double jeopardy, district courts likewise must automatically stay their proceedings while the interlocutory appeal is ongoing. They emphasize this. Automatically. And qualified immunity and double jeopardy were the two types of motions that Trump's defense submitted. Probably by design. They found this Coinbase case and like, perfect. So Coinbase, boom, boom, and SCOTUS. Now, Coinbase is going to be a civil case, right? That's the crypto exchange. But it's a civil case, but they're referencing why an automatic stay is appropriate, and they're referencing other case law that was incorporated into the Supreme Court case. So official immunity and double jeopardy, of course, are issues at stake in President Trump's interlocutory appeal. And so, this might be, my friends, like four-dimensional chess, all right, is what you're seeing. So they actually submitted their motions in this manner, okay, and they wrapped both of those issues up basically into one. They were waiting for Chutkan to deny it. Then they're submitting this one, knowing that SCOTUS has already given them this foundation with the Coinbase case. It's quite good. So then they just got this one that just got ruled in their favor. So then in Blossingame, which is another case that's bad for Trump because it says that the Capitol Hill police cases can go against him, can move forward to the next discovery phase. Trump filed a motion to dismiss. They said no, discovery is allowed, and so it can move forward. So they said, okay, well, the D.C. court literally just came out and reinforced the rationales that require a stay. Now, the Court of Appeals held that factual questions related to Trump's presidential immunity must be resolved before any merits-related discovery. That's their words, Judge, not ours. So we have to pause the case before we can go to actual discovery. That is because official immunity, including the presidential official immunity, is immunity from suit rather than a mere defense to liability. Official immunity is so powerful and so broad that it's literally an entitlement to not stand trial in the face and face other burdens of litigation. We protect them so hard. The official claiming immunity from suit is the president. These concerns are particularly pronounced. Thus, the court held that President Trump must therefore be afforded an opportunity to resolve his immunity claim before merits discovery. Before you can start opening up the floodgates, you got to make sure that he's not immune. So Blossingame, which does say that the case can move forward to investigate this stuff, reinforces both that the entire case is involved in an appeal related to official immunity and that the stay must extend to all cases, saying it's another companion case that's very similar. So here, Your Honor, Chutkan, sorry, but the law says the following. Coinbase, Blossingame, and DeFries, they unequivocally support three conclusions here. One, the stay of the district court proceedings is mandatory. Sorry, Judge, you don't have an option. It is not discretionary. And two, the stay applies in criminal as well as civil cases. So even though some of their cases like Coinbase are civil, we're talking about criminal because it's the same feature. These are defense principles, right? That it's just logic. If the entire case is in question, you have to pause the entire case. And the stay extends not just to the trial, but to the pretrial proceedings as well. And Coinbase held that Griggs, which is another case, it dictates. They say you have no option. The district court must stay its proceedings while the interlocutory appeal is ongoing. You've got no choice. Coinbase, that civil case, they cited criminal cases, and when they cited these that the Supreme Court ruled on, they even cited notably double jeopardy cases that they say is mandatory. And they also said that it goes down to pretrial proceedings and trial proceedings. And Blossingame, it literally just reinforced this conclusion by reaffirming that presidential immunity is immunity from suit, not just immunity from liability. And we have to resolve that before any merits discovery. And Trump's defense is just on a tear here. They say, by the way, guess what? The prosecution has effectively conceded all three of these points. The prosecution has admitted that the stay is mandatory and applies in criminal cases. It cited a criminal case for the proposition that while a non-frivolous question of immunity is pending on appeal, the party asserting immunity cannot be forced to go to trial, citing United States versus other cases. Now they continue. They say, the criminal case that is cited by the prosecution holds that official claims of immunity and double jeopardy protect the appealing defendant from the burdens of litigation, not just the burdens of trial, right? Burdens of litigation, meaning you can't even charge him. And so these conclusions accord with the long-standing case law from the D.C. Circuit, that's you, Judge Chutkan, and other circuits holding that proceedings in a trial court should be stayed pending the appeals of the immunity and the double jeopardy claims. In immunity cases, likewise in D.C., they've held, Chutkan, they said, quote, because an appeal properly pursued from a district court's order denying a claim of immunity divests the district court of control over aspects of the case that are on appeal, exclusive jurisdiction to resolve the threshold issue in this case vests in this court, and the district court may not proceed to trial until the appeal is resolved. Ooh, Chutkan's not going to like that. That's from D.C. Circuit Court back in 1993, citing Griggs, a U.S. Supreme Court case. So she's going to have to try to, she's going to do everything she can to avoid this, by the way. Now, in short, they say the Griggs principle already requires an automatic stay of Chutkan's proceedings that relate to any aspects of the case that are involved in the appeal. Now, if Trump's interlocutory is appealable, then they say that the district court loses its power here. And because President Trump's appeal considers whether the criminal case against him may proceed at all, the proceedings in this case are automatically stayed pending the outcome of that appeal. Wow. Now, the stay is warranted irrespective of the mandatory jurisdictional bar, saying in addition to this, Your Honor, this is mandatory, okay? But if you don't do it, the court should, in other words, right? It's mandatory, but here's why you should do it anyways. Like, you don't have a choice, but here's why it's the right decision. You should also stay all proceedings pending the appeal, given the well-established importance of resolving immunity at the earliest possible stage of the litigation. Though the Griggs principle reinforced that Coinbase is mandatory and it's jurisdictional, meaning you just lose it, it's also supported by strong policy considerations. So Chutkan, you should not feel bad about this, okay? We're taking this away from you, but don't be upset. Why? Because this is independently warranted. As the Supreme Court reasoned in Coinbase, they say from the judiciary's institutional perspective, allowing the case to proceed simultaneously, if you allow both things to happen, like it's going forward in the district court and it's going forward in the Court of Appeals, it creates the possibility that the district court is going to waste judicial resources, which could be devoted to other things. So you put it on pause at Chutkan's courtroom and you let it go up. That could then be devoted to other pressing or criminal or civil matters on a dispute that will ultimately be held to arbitration in any event, right? So we want efficiency. Same logic applies here, says Trump's defense. Allowing a case to proceed simultaneously in the district court and the Court of Appeals is going to waste resources, and it's going to be the worst possible outcome for all parties and the courts, especially if the Court of Appeals comes down and says, yeah, he is immune, by the way. Then we just have a full trial for nothing? Now, they want the trial to go on because they need it to happen before the election, but there's no real judicial reason for that to happen. Just postpone the trial. Concerns regarding judicial resources and costs from continued litigation during the pendency of the appeal, including the financial cost, the reputational damage, the political cost to President Trump, they're all significant. Now, as the court noted last week, the court has not yet resolved the pending motions to dismiss on the statutory grounds. We're still waiting for that one. And we're still waiting for the selective and the vindictive prosecution's motions as well. And Trump has also filed motions to compel discovery. He also wants classified materials and says that the prosecution is going to argue that there are national security issues, and Trump needs to appeal those as well. And so Trump is also facing SIPA issues, fact-intensive SIPA proceedings. The court has also directed Trump to make intrusive disclosures about his defense. They also want defense exhibits. They want expert disclosures and all these things. And they also want to know whether we want to pursue the advice of counsel defense. So they're saying, Judge, you're making us do all of these things, but we don't even know if this case is yours. Because of presidential immunity and double jeopardy, the Court of Appeals have to resolve this. You want us to do all this garbage when we don't even know if this case is going forward? What gives? So it says the common practice of staying proceedings while such issues on appeal are on appeal reflects the standard practice that if the district court, if they could move forward with pretrial and trial proceedings while the appeal was ongoing, many of the benefits of the immunity would be lost. The whole point of immunity is that it is immune. So a right to interlocutory appeal of the immunity issue without an automatic stay of the district proceedings is therefore like a lock without a key, a bat without a ball, a computer without a keyboard. In other words, it's not especially sensible. And for these reasons and those cited above, a stay of the proceedings in this court is warranted pending the final resolution of President Trump's appeal. Saying, in conclusion, the court should stay all further proceedings in this case pending the final resolution of President Trump's appeal and hold in abeyance all current deadlines until the motion is resolved. Hold in abeyance, okay? No more jury selection, no more pretrial deadlines, nothing. Saying, finally, because the continuation of these proceedings in the absence of jurisdiction inflicts ongoing irreparable harm, Trump respectfully requests the court rule on this motion within 7 days. Pick up the pace. Now, if the court does not grant this motion and stay the proceedings, President Trump respectfully requests that this court enter a temporary administrative stay of proceedings while he pursues relief from the Court of Appeals. Good motion here. And Judge Chutkan is going to be fuming. She's fuming today. Counsel for President Trump conferred with counsel for Jack Smith, and they oppose the relief requested herein. And so no surprise there. Obviously, what's going to happen is Jack Smith is going to respond to this. Judge Chutkan is going to deny it in some way, shape, or form. They will appeal this, and then we'll see what the Court of Appeals does, because if they come back down and issue an administrative stay, that March trial might be not sticking around. And this is what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for something to muck the gears up, because what Judge Chutkan has already done by trying to get this trial scheduled in March is basically insane, given the amount and volume of documents that exist in this case. So this is Jake Tapper, who's on CNN, talking about a lot of these issues. And what we're going to do is see if we can increase the volume on the next segment and see if that will be better for us. But this is Jake Tapper on CNN with, guess who? January 6th, Kinzinger.
Congresswoman Lofgren, let's start with the news from the special counsel and how they want to use Trump's support.
That is a very low audio. Let me boost this volume up for us.
Continued support for the rioters of January 6th to help prove that he intended to inspire violence that day. How might this potentially bolster the prosecution's case, do you think?
Well, I'll leave it to prosecutors to discuss the rules of evidence, but the former president has made it clear that he stands with law violators, he stands with the rioters. He intended the riot to occur to keep in power. So I think his behavior before, during, and after the riot is all of one piece. He was for violence to overturn the government.
And former Congressman Kinzinger, what's your reaction? Do you think these statements shed light on Trump's intent before the riot, given that he's continuing to talk about these individuals being patriots and deserving pardons?
Yeah, completely. And, you know, all you have to do is see when he calls them political prisoners. Jake, what is it, like 3 weeks ago, he opened up a rally with these quote unquote political prisoners singing the national anthem, and everybody was saluting. You know, about the same time he called for the execution of General Milley. This is in contrast to, there is still like this flavor of people out there that believe that it was the FBI that did January 6th.
They were involved. They were there.
Sometimes it was Antifa.
They were there.
There was just basically January 6th was just some peaceful people that got wrapped up in everything.
They were there too.
Which goes to the question of, well, then why is the president, the former president, calling them heroes? And why is why is it that, Speaker Johnson wants to protect their faces if it's the FBI and if it's Antifa? Well, it's obviously not. And it just goes to show the mentality of, we've got to protect our tribe, our side, because this isn't about defending the Constitution anymore. It's about gaining power at all costs. And I think you're seeing that manifest now.
All right, so these people who are on one of the most illegally constituted committees in American history by their own rules, who just cobbled it together and created a fake tyrannical show trial, are now saying that Trump is an insurrectionist and tyrannical, and his behavior is antithetical to the American democracy. So that's what's happening out of the January 6th case, my friends. And of course, we will be here continuing to cover this one. We're going to be following this one quite closely. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting that like button. And thank you for going to robertgovea.com to sign up for our daily newsletter. We'll be looking forward to seeing you there and right back here on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, hopefully that audio is a little bit better. We should be coming in a little hotter now. I turned it up quite a little nudge. Better sound? All right, cool. Hopefully it's a little bit better now. All right. Now, again, my automatic gain correction, it moved it down again. Now, I'm going to watch it. I have it open now. So I have it open. I'm watching it now. We're at level 60 right now. Just for the audio files at home, we're at level 60. Better? I don't know. I had it on 50 and then it went down to 30 today. Now it's back on 60 and it's holding. So we'll see if it continues to hold. We got one final segment on the day. Hopefully the audio sticks with us and doesn't adjust. I wonder what happened there. But I'll figure it out later. It's a work in progress, my friends. Thank you for operating. Yeah, we're at 60%, Captain. We're at 60%. I hope she holds, Captain. All right. Let's get to it. Now, we're going over to Florida. And we're going to see what's happening over there. Okay, in Florida. Donald Trump's co-defendants are now battling for classified materials in the Florida case. Trump is also battling for the classified documents, but there's a little interesting rub here because Trump was the former president and these other co-defendants were not. Why would they get access to the classified documents? Or why would they get access to maybe not the documents, but at least information about what Jack Smith is doing with the documents or how these documents are being communicated about behind closed doors in the courtroom chambers? And Trump is filing similar motions to get access to these things. But let's take a look at this one because it goes to the obstruction element of what Jack Smith is alleging. Remember, Joe Biden had classified documents. Many other people have had classified documents, including Hillary, who deleted them like with a cloth. And there are concerns about that, obviously. But what about Walt and Carlos? Why would they have access to these materials? Well, because Jack Smith says that they obstructed the retrieval of those documents, right? They had possession at some point in time over the documents themselves. And so you see, this is something that is curious, filed out of the Southern District of Florida. The case is United States of America versus Walt and Carlos. But this is going to sort of implicate Trump, because they're saying that Trump basically gave these guys permission illegally to go and access the documents, right? You see how this can layer onto itself. So I think that this motion is probably filed in conjunction with Trump and his defense team, because they're filing something similar. But let's take a look at what this argument is. It says here, defendants Walt and Carlos, by their lawyers, they hereby respectfully request that this court limit, and this is the same concern in the Trump case, the ex parte nature of Jack Smith's filings, right? Jack Smith keeps going outside of the defense. They say now at the outset here, Mr. Nauta and Oliviera, they agree with former President Trump, kind of safety in numbers here, that a motion to SIPA is a critical juncture when the government asks the court to endorse the withholding of discoverable material by determining whether the material is relevant or helpful to the defense, right? So they get to decide what evidence the defense gets under the name of national security. Now, in effect, because SIPA creates no new rights or limits on discovery of a specific area of classified information, prosecutors filing a motion pursuant to this provision are seeking permission to withhold Brady material. Okay, material that might exonerate you. They're just trying to say, oh, it's classified. And this is a pernicious tactic that they use, right? Everything's classified, so you can't even see the materials against you. Now, these motions require the court to stand in the defendant's shoes. And we've got a very different judge here. In Chutkan's case, she says, oh no, Trump's a monster, maniac, insurrectionist. And so all this national security stuff, he doesn't need to see it. But this is Judge Cannon. She's in a different situation. It says, these motions require the court to stand in the defense's shoes, to predict defenses that the defendant has not yet presented and is entitled to develop and modify until the case is submitted to the jury for deliberations, and to protect important defense rights to exculpatory information relevant to trial and sentencing. In other words, we need this stuff. Defense rights. Now, accordingly, only, quote, special circumstances may justify removing SIPA from the traditional adversarial system and turning to the applicable statute. Here's what it says. The court may, upon a sufficient showing, may authorize the United States to even delete specific items of classified information from documents made available to the defense. Okay, there's a provision of the law that allows the government to just delete stuff from the defense and substitute a summary of the information for the materials and the relevant facts that the government thinks is appropriate. Now, the court may permit the United States to make such a request for such authorization in the form of a written statement. So Jack Smith's prosecutors, under the federal government laws, we already know that the intelligence agencies have a strong anti-Trump bias. We've seen that in 2016. We've seen that in 2020 with the CIA and the FBI censoring social media and creating fake Russia hack cover stories. So now we're asking the DOJ in collusion with these intelligence agencies, since they're the entities that manage the classified documents, right? They govern all of that. So the DOJ, which is anti-Trump, appointed by Joe Biden's Merrick Garland, Jack Smith to go after him, is now colluding with the same FBI and the same CIA that rigged everything against him in the first two elections and the first one attempted. So now they can just delete evidence and keep it from Trump and the defense? So here, now we're saying the court may permit the United States to make this authorization, and this authority is derived from different rules. Now, the permissiveness is consistent with a congressional admonishment that we're supposed to clarify what these rules mean. And they say specifically, Your Honor, Judge Cannon, not Judge Chutkan, ex parte is permissive. And ex parte means that Jack Smith and Jay Bratt, who's down in Florida, they are sending documents outside of the defense. They're bypassing the defense, sending it directly to the judge and having Judge Cannon make rulings on them. They're saying it's only permissive. You're not required to do this. Here, the unique facts and circumstances in this case, Judge Cannon, they warrant the court rejecting the special counsel's request that its SIPA 4 hearing motion be heard ex parte. First, our defendants in this action, we're not accused terrorists. we're not unlikely to obtain security clearances necessary to review this information. And so these rules don't apply to us. In fact, to the contrary, both President Trump and Mr. Nauta had unrestricted access to all the classified information at issue. And you might have some concerns about that, because did Walt Nauta have clarity, have classification authority to go look at those things? Let's see. The government asks too much, however, when it expects this court to exclude Trump's lawyers and Walt's lawyers from even reviewing these statements. Says lawyers have security clearances, and there is every reason to think that the counsel can be trusted with this sensitive information. And second, the nature of the classified information at issue in this case requires that it be accessible by both the defendants and their counsel. Why? Because the indictment itself alleges that the wrongful retention of the documents and the conspiracies to obstruct the special counsel into the retention, it's part of the crime. You are charging our clients with obstruction and wrongful retention of documents. So we need to see those documents. That's the evidence. So we can review it. Now you are literally charging them with that and then saying they can't see the evidence against them. So we need to see it. Accordingly, the individuals best positioned to inform the defense counsel of the nature and the circumstances about these documents and about these conspiracies are Trump and his closest advisor, Nauta. They need to be able to see the material so that they can opine on them. And they're trying to delete the evidence and keep it away from the defense. Now, in the alternative, they say, were the court to permit any ex parte review of their submission, if you're going to look at their submissions outside of us, only two aspects of the same warrant this review. First, the district court must determine what materials in question are in fact discoverable. Here, in potentially the most consequential test of the balancing test, right? The government needs to balance its interests. The government says, my national security secrets, we can't give you anything or else America will die. And the defense says, we need everything because we have a right to a fair trial. And they say here that this court should agree that there is an adversarial system championed by our founders. And so you should limit Jack Smith from keeping this stuff hidden under dark of night. Stop him from seeking to withhold this stuff from defense counsel. And second, Judge Cannon, it follows that if the materials are discoverable, if we can get access to that stuff, the court must then confirm that they are in fact classified. If they're not classified, then the rules say that the court is not authorized to delete or summarize the materials in question. We want it. Put simply, if the material is not actually classified under the court's determinations, then SEPA does not apply. And so to meet its obligation of demonstrating that the materials in question are in fact classified, the government will submit explanations. But here again, neither the defense team nor any defendant have any need to know the classified information that the government relied upon are in fact classified. And while it remains the position of these defendants that the court would benefit from the typical adversarial system that we like in America, should it decide to consider any materials ex parte, that review again should be limited. So if you're going to do what Jack Smith wants, make it very limited. Once the court concludes that the materials that the government tries to withhold are discoverable and that they are in fact classified, any privilege of the government applicable to these materials must give way to the defense's right to a fair trial. You can't hide evidence from us. We need to have it in order to prepare our case. Continuing saying, although this observation of Congress is broad, the Second Circuit has reasoned that what was intended by Congress. There's a presumption in the favor of the government's privilege. It's overcome by a district court's finding and a lot of case law here. And so even if this court were to conclude, despite a determination that the materials that they seek to delete are discoverable, they say the lawyers may not participate if they say the lawyers may not participate, we should be able to participate in an adversarial challenge to their assertions. Again, ex parte communications are problematic. Let us at least respond to it. So give us what we want, but if not, at least let us be a part of the conversation. For the foregoing reasons, we ask now that the court respectfully order the submissions that they're sending to you, Judge. Like we can see they're sending these things to you. Please disclose it to the defense. Signed by Walt and Carlos Oliviera's attorneys, seen here Stanley Woodward, Sasha Dayton, and Larry Donald Morrell, amongst others. All sending this in to Judge Cannon in the Southern District of Florida, West Palm Beach Division, demanding access to those classified documents, and we'll see if they get them. Now, this is Psaki and Schiff. Schiff, as we know, lied to us about a lot of classified documents, said, I got all these classified documents, lied through his teeth to America about it. But he showed up on her show on MSNBC called Inside Jen Psaki, and they're issuing new warnings about the threat to American democracy.
Trump did this
by Donald Trump. Here is Jen.
I wanted to start just with some of what I just went through, because clearly what Trump did this weekend, accusing Joe Biden of being anti-democratic, I see some parallels here with what the Kremlin has done in the past, their tactic of projecting what they are doing onto their opponent. Do you?
Absolutely. There's real method to Donald Trump's madness, and it's not a playbook that he created. It's one that has been used, I think, by autocrats the world over and for a long time, and that is accuse your opponents of what you do. Donald Trump's argument is really not that he's not corrupt or that he's not a liar. Rather, his argument is everyone is corrupt, everyone are liars. But I'm your crook, I'm your liar. You should be with me. And it's not just Donald Trump using this playbook. It's also Republicans in Congress. Donald Trump gets impeached on a legitimate basis twice. So they're going to impeach Joe Biden illegitimately. And why? To dilute the stain, to accuse Joe Biden of the same kind of misconduct that Donald Trump committed, when there is obviously no misconduct in the case of Joe Biden, but rather an effort by Republicans in Congress to muddy the waters, to dilute the stain of what Donald Trump went through. You see it in, people like Elise Stefanik accusing Nancy Pelosi of being an authoritarian or an autocrat. It's absurd.
They are literally, did you hear him say that? Saying, accusing Pelosi of being an authoritarian? Look, their chyron at the bottom of MSNBC is literally Trump takes a page from Putin's playbook. See that? The Republicans are calling us autocrats and tyrants. Their entire shtick is Trump is pooty poo. Like, that's it. So it's just politics, I guess.
But if they can persuade enough people that, everybody does it, then they hope to at least muddy the waters. They undoubtedly are aware Americans are deeply concerned with Donald Trump's anti-democratic plans, his statements about terminating the Constitution, his intention to eviscerate the civil service, and so much more, weaponize the Justice Department, and he is trying to muddy the waters.
All right, so everything that they say Trump is doing, they are doing. They say he's a tyrant. They're the ones who are prosecuting him 4 times and weaponizing the legal system against him. But that's how they cope with themselves and sell books and sell viewers on MSNBC and elsewhere. So we'll be here continuing to cover the Florida case as well. There will be more Trump filings, I'm sure, that resemble this as he continues to try to get access to more discovery and more information that the government is trying to hide from him. We'll be here continuing to cover, my friends. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for visiting robertgovea.com to sign up for our daily newsletter. And so you can download the PDFs, all of which will be available there. And we'll look forward to seeing you there and back here on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground. We got Trump and his co-defendants are now battling for more discovery. The appeal stayed. The case argued should be stayed based on the appeal that Trump filed. We're very much looking for that. Looking forward to that one. And then Trump and his expert are also blasting Tishy Leticia James out of the New York case. And we had some good clips from Trump there as well. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about this. We are going over for our members only after party here after the show. at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. So come and check us out. We'd love to see you and have you sign up for us. We do members-only streams in the mornings, except tomorrow morning, and Saturday shows. We'll be there on Saturday. And so come check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And let's see who is here and in the house on this lovely day. I see some very generous donos out there. Very grateful for those. And man, Vientikis, look at this, man. This looks pretty nice. This looks pretty nice. He's clipping for us over there. Look at that graphic, man. Woo, V, that's fancy, man. I love that. All right, thank you for doing that, V. Who is here? We got Pinecone in the house. Vientikis clipping for us. We got Pinecone gifting a membo to Muffin in the house. Pinecone, thank you for gifting a membo to our friend Muffin in the house. We got Quantum Thug Life is here, quantuming it out in multiple dimensions. Cecilia M, Pete C, Metal Jake. We got Freed is here and Margaret S, all coming in thanks to Quantum Thug Life in the house. Hey, what's up? Freedom Express Media. My friends, if you're not already subscribed over to Freedom Express Media, well, you should be, because they are there covering what they're doing to the January Sixers there in Washington, D.C. And I subscribed to their channel, and I was poking by the other day. It was maybe a week ago, I'd say. And you were out there singing, man, singing for the J6ers. So shout out to Freedom Express Media. Says, looks like we hit the 1 month mark. Great to be here. Great to have you, Freedom Express Media. Thanks for being a membo. Thanks for the great work that you're doing over there. And my friends, be sure to check them out in the house. Hey, hey, what's up? Jackie Carrion is here. Jackie Carrion had been a membo for 8 months, Jackie. 8 months. Woo! And you know, someone educated me on the X platform. They said, you know, Rob, babies actually take longer than 9 months. So I did see that out there, whoever that was. Thank you for that. We're still sticking with the 9 months. You got 1 month left, and then you're going to pop, Jackie. Thanks for being here. We're almost at a baby. We got Patrick Parker's here. Says, Rob, I need some help with an ongoing problem I will contact you about. The situation, if you can play it, the situation is, if you could please indulge me. I would greatly appreciate it. Well, Patrick, I'll do what I can to help. I don't know that I'll be able to, but I'll certainly take a look at it. You know the email. Send one over, and if I can help, I will. If I can't help, I'll see if I know somebody who can. And so thanks for being here. I hope you're doing okay. Okay, if it's an emergency or something, make sure you call the appropriate authorities. But thank you, Patrick, for that. Don't know. I hope you're doing okay, my friend. We got this one from Dolphin Fan is the man, bringing in some membos in the house. Of course, Dolphin Fan brings in James B., Barbara Joe, All is One, BMO is here, as is SCVM in the house. Thank you, Dolphin Fan is the man. We got Wendy K. says, I'm obsessed with this nation and the wings that are being perpetrated against her. Probably wrongs. I'm obsessed with this nation and the wrongs that are being perpetrated against her, from Wendy K. Well, I love this nation too, and it really grosses me out what they're doing to it. We got Jentifer says, Rob, volume is up. Oh, I got a volume problem. I like to go about my business while listening. All right, Jentifer, we adjusted the volume. Hopefully it's coming in louder now. Thanks for flagging that for me. That's why I was able to see the concerns and make the adjustments. Hopefully it's a little bit better now. We got Total Destiny says, all Trump's trials frustrate me to no end. What I've seen so far, every single one reeks of government corruption. What can citizens peacefully do to voice this opinion of injustice to each court and or lawmakers? Well, I mean, basically what you nailed it on the head, right? Certainly contact your lawmakers. That's one way to do it. Give them an earful, but don't ever break the law. You know, hey, I'm a citizen. I'm upset about what's happening. I'd like you to do something about it. You're my representative. Represent me, right? That's something you can do. But, you know, it's always got to be calm, respectful, never threatening, never harassing, because they'll charge you for that. So stuff like that, I think, is very useful. I personally think speaking to your friends and families, you know, kind of opening up your local community to these thoughts and ideas is very good. I'm working on a much, I think, better community solution that's going to help facilitate this conversation in many ways. So we're working on some stuff here on our back end that we're going to be talking about on locals here very soon. But I think there's a lot that can be done. I think staying energized is very important. Staying healthy is very important. Okay. Keeping your mask on, you know, not like the airplane mask, right? Not the mask on, but, you know, you got to put your mask on so that you can breathe oxygen. And if the government is trying to squeeze you out, like suffocate you to death, to get you over addicted, to get you over indulgent in other things that are not useful, to get you deflated from your life's career, to get you disconnected from your passion, your purpose, your reason of existence. Like, you got to stay connected to all those things. And I use the airplane analogy. It's like you got to put your mask on before you put someone else's mask on, right? And so we got to make sure that we are fortified in our lives so that we can then go and be useful in this great debate that we're fighting. So I think definitely, reaching out to your representatives, reaching out to your local community, expanding your local community if you don't have one, are good ways to start. And then taking good care of yourself so that you don't get spiraled off, because I think a big part of this kind of fifth generational warfare is to deviate people from the field. You don't necessarily have to defeat people. You just have to deflate them and leave them dejected so that they don't participate anymore. So keep coming back, Total Destiny. We'll keep seeing you here. Wendy K says, it literally is get Trump at all costs, because this is it. If Trump is not in 2024, we as a nation are screwed. It does kind of feel like it's kind of like do or die at this situation. And I think that it really bodes well for Trump. It's like, this is it. This is the line in the sand. The amount of enthusiasm that's going to be behind him is massive, I believe. We've got this one from, thank you for this. We got Southern Comfort says, I believe the gag order that was put on Trump is going to benefit even more, coming across smoother and staying on point. He's even going to gain more followers. Peace and love from the U.S. From Southern Comfort. Interesting question. So I see what you're saying. You're like saying, well, what if they gag Trump and he suddenly talks like very presidentially, like Trump comes out and he speaks like Winston Churchill or something, and like, wow, we're like, wow, this is very different. And then suddenly he wins all 50 states. Trump's like, fine, you want me to be gagged? 77 years ago. And he comes out here and goes, wow, this is incredible. He's like, fine. He wins by 50 points, 50 state landslide. He's like, hey, thanks, Chutkan, for the gag. Wendy's here, says, hey, good will always prevail over evil. And I will always speak to the positive. If you speak to the positive, you're speaking it into fruition. Absolutely. I think the words are etching in to the fabric of the universe. When you say that things are going to be good, they generally are good. If you wake up in the morning and you say one of two things, if you wake up and you say today is going to be a great day, it's more likely to be a better day. If you wake up and you say today is going to be the worst, it's almost always the worst. Isn't that weird how that works? It's strange. It's almost like what you speak and what you believe manifests itself into reality. Weird. Here, a good one from Wendy. Now, the one caveat I always want to be cautious of is I think that good, it's not this like unstoppable force that good just keeps moving on without our involvement. We got to be involved. We got to stay energized. We got to stay plugged in. There's the other quote that we were talking about at dinner last night, which was, all that's required for evil to prevail is that good men do nothing. Okay, that's the opposite of that. All that's required for evil to prevail is that good men do nothing. So apathy is a big, big concern. Disconnection from community is a big, big concern. What they did with COVID was separate everybody, right? And disconnect communities. And so we got to rebuild some of those structures, because we also have to rebuild the informational supply chains that create the unity that we need to thrive. Denny, great comment, Wendy. Denny Hanks is here. What's up, Denny? Thanks for becoming a supporter, my friend, on the YouTubes. Great to have you. Wendy K says, not only is this the beginning of Hanukkah today, shout out to our Jewish friends. Not only is today the beginning of Hanukkah, but it is the remembrance of Pearl Harbor Day today as well. Okay, so yeah, we pay our respect to Pearl Harbor and our veterans. There's a lot going on today, and I didn't know either one of those things. Although I think we mentioned something about Pearl Harbor and Hanukkah this morning. Did we? I think so. Maybe I did know that. I also forget what day it is. But happy Hanukkah to our friends out there, and we remember Pearl Harbor. We pay our respects as well. Thank you, Wendy, for pointing those out. And that makes more sense because Adam Klasfeld was having that piece of bread today, whatever that was. Looked delicious. Knox says, happy Thursday, all. Today in court, Knox is an attorney in Texas, says today in court, there were 2 rows of angry family members wearing their decedent T-shirts, all mad-dogging defense counsel who just did his job. He didn't ask for the removal of the family, wearing of sweaters, etc. GF wouldn't make it in our world. Gosh. So that's hilarious. So Knox is saying, look, there's an attorney who's in court, family member, their family, like the defendant is sitting there, likely killed somebody, right? And their family is sitting there with the t-shirts on. And the defense attorney is just like, I guess this is how it plays. It's how it goes. Greenfield and Judge Engeron, man, his areolas would be level 5 red alert. He needs some ointment for him. That's how upset he'd be. What's up, Wendy K? Wendy K is here, says, my dog embodies Rob. It's all in the eyes. Well, he's a very handsome fella. So I definitely see it. I definitely see the resemblance there. Yeah. I've heard, I've got some resemblance to that. We got B-Man is here. And hey, here's a nice photo of this too. What's up? What a handsome boy. What a handsome, good-looking boy. Yes, you are. You're a good boy. B-Man is here. Says January 25th, 2021 was when the Senate started their impeachment trial. So if he was found guilty, it would have not been constitutional. If he was found guilty. But I think the argument would have been his conduct was committed during the time he was president. And I think that's how you escape that's kind of what Chutkan's argument was, is that, well, then he could do a bunch of crimes at the very end and then escape it. And I don't think that's really how it reads either. Crash says, Judge Chutkan suffers from a deep case of hubris, and nemesis is going to get her in the rear. We got this one from Spud. Says, Rob, it's 5D chess, okay? Don't be so chintzy. Says Spuds. It's 5D chess, not 4D chess. Good to know. Wendy says, this is the case against George Bush Jr. United States versus Bush in one of the cases. Thank you for that, Wendy. Fact says, can Cannon sanction Jack Smith and everybody? Preferably like lock them up sanctions? She could. I mean, but it would have to go through the same escalation, really. I mean, in order for it to be practical. Facts, it's a fun question, but yeah, like she'd have to order him to do something and then he'd violate it and he'd say, okay, order to show cause. Why'd you do it? Okay, here's a warning. Don't do it again. Okay, now here's a warning. Now you're held in contempt. Okay, you broke it again. Now, since you violated my order of contempt, now I'm charging you with contempt of court. Now, the misdemeanor, I'm holding you in contempt. You're in sanction and all the things. So like, it's a real tall ladder to get there. But she definitely could. This one is from Christopher Lopez. What's up? Says, Nikki Haley isn't even her real name. The irony is real. You're absolutely right about Christopher. Her name is like Nimarata Nikki Haley, right? And she wants everybody to be doxxed and identified on the interwebs. We did a full debrief on her, man. She got obliterated last night. It was very enjoyable to see. Knox says, Rob, thank you again for the breakdowns tonight. Thank you, Knox. Thanks for being here. I hope you had a great day in court. Hopefully very successful. Wendy says, Rob really closes out my day. Well, I appreciate that, Wendy. I mean, it's very enjoyable to be able to unpack all of this together with you. I'm really grateful for the time that we spend together. So thank you for saying that. I feel the same way. This old guy says, missed the morning Membos meeting and was late getting in this afternoon. Late penalties enclosed. I like it. I like it. So I was at an event last weekend, and if you were late, they closed the doors. If you were late, they charged you $20. Right? And a lot of people got upset about that. After the first day, apparently people were complaining about it. I've been a member of this group for a while, so I knew that's the rule. And, it's good. I think you should be in your seat when the speaker's out. You don't want people lounging in here, speakers in the middle. Get your butt back in there, man. So it's a $20 late dono if you came in the room. But apparently a bunch of people at the event were upset, like, we're not children. Like, yeah, you are. Get back in your seat. Pay the $20. All right, anyways. We don't have that rule here. You can come anytime you want. But if you do want to pay $10 or $20, I'll take it. I'm not mad about it. It says, missed the morning Membo stream and was late getting here. This old guy, thanks for that, my friend. Late penalties enclosed. Hey, we're glad you made it, this old guy. And thanks for being here. Super fun. We've got another one here from Barbaric Brit. Ooh, says, hearing these leftist news shows is funny. You can hear the echoes coming from the voids between the ears. Keep up the good work. I kind of like listening to them, Like, I like pulling them up here on the show because they're so crazy. They're just like, Trump is Putin. He's going to kill us. Wait, what? What are you talking about? Like democracy ending and all the things. They're just it's kind of madness, but what can you do? Thank you, Barbaric Brit. Very nice to have you. And shout out to our friends in Britain. We got Freedom Express Media. Of course, as I said, make sure you're giving him a subscribe over on the tubes if you're interested in the J6 stuff. Says Cool is bringing in 5 membos. Thank you, Freedom Express Media, bringing in Cool Comic Guy. We got the old bag coming in. Carol Ann M. AM is here. And Boiler Operator all coming in courtesy of Freedom Express Media. We got Chris is here. Says, is there not one Supreme Court judge that can see how wrong this is? I'm sure there are, right? I'm sure Alito right now is probably also in a bit of a fury at the moment. I would imagine that he is. And that if it does ever get to Alito, that he'll be doing something about it. And so, my friends, thank you for those, along with some of the other judges. We'll see. Now, again, I don't have a ton of faith in the Supreme Court to come out and, reset this, but we'll see. I'm hopeful that maybe they will. Because free speech is way more important than a political prosecution of a political opponent. But, there are a lot of forces out there organized against Trump, and you never know. So, my friends, thank you for those very, very generous donos. We're going to go take a look at our friends on the X platform and see who is joining us over there. We've also got our friends on the Rumbles. Shout out to our little galaxy. We got Catwoman's over there. We got Slappy T. What's up, Slappy T? I see Army Brats over there. Good to see you guys. And we're pulling up. Oh, Tucker and Alex Jones. Ooh, Tucker and Alex Jones. Ooh, that's going to be fun. Well, might have to watch that one tonight. So that's going to be a good one to check out as soon as you're done here. But then we're going to go and see who's on the X platform, who is joining us on the day. And where is our live stream? Is it here? Where did it go? Okay, that's all of the various shorts. And here it is. All right. So this is the X thread. And I'm going to tell my team not to post our stuff. So V says, click the title to get to the Twitter chat. And this is what I get, V. Here, this is what I get, man. Oh, hey. Oh, it's because I was too zoomed in. All right, so now apparently we have Twitter chat. Hello, my friends. Hey, look at that. We got a Twitter chat. Now, I didn't even know that was a thing. So apparently, if you click the title on the X platform, you now have a Twitter chat. So any of the 31 viewers, if you're over there, try to give that a shot. And that's pretty cool, V. Thank you for that. Didn't even realize that. All right. So we also had some comments. We also had some comments over on the X platform. Let's see. Elon's making things happen, my friends. Making things happen. We're excited about that. Let's see what else we've got. So this one came in on the X. V says, just a reminder on how to get to the Twitter chat. Danny McWilliams is over there. We've got... He says, biker law is a lot easier. Your word is your life. Yeah, it's pretty, yeah. Just staying true to your word would be a nice way to live, too. One way to defang the government is to stop buying stuff from the big corporations, learn to make things, focus on local economies. They would hate that. Yeah, they would hate that. Feline Fun says, thanks for what you do, Rob, in covering the Trump trials. It's like the Super Bowl of litigation, and I look forward to watching every night. You're the best. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it is like, this is... My friends, this is a historic moment in time. Like this might be a key defining moment in America. I think it is a key defining moment in American history. Like we're living it together. And a lot of generations don't get to say that. Like a lot of people don't really get to say that. I think maybe a lot of people think that they are in that moment. But I think in terms of the law, like this is a choke point. This is a decision point. We are in something that has never happened before, ever. And we're going through it for the first time now. And so I'm grateful to be able to spend the time together with you. That D guy says, I'm surprised that they have not started screaming that the witness is a white supremacist. Troublemaker says, I mentioned that Pearl Harbor today. That's right. You did mention that, Troublemaker. You did mention that today. I appreciate that. I do remember seeing that. Go Army, beat Navy. I don't have a dog in the fight. George says, Rob, I had a lot of issues with the noise. All right, hopefully we fixed that today. Hopefully it's now boosted up where it needs to be. And Leviz is here. Says, thank you, Rob. Excellent, clear explanations. Great work. Have to love President Trump's legal team. Frivolous cases with pretend evidence, and the Trump team is impressive. Larper says, how come Trump's lawyers haven't used that argument that presidents get Secret Service protection for life? Well, they did. They kind of made the presidential immunity argument, and that's the one the judge denied that they are appealing at this very moment. And so, my friends, that is what we see over on X. Thank you for following. Thank you for watching on X. Let's see. Did anything in the chat? Did anybody say anything in the chat? I don't know. I think it disappeared. I don't know if it's working. I don't see anything happening over there, but we'll see. And viewers are leaving now. They don't want to chat, which is fine. I understand that too. All right, so we are now going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We would love to see you there. Thank you for the very nice donos, my friends. Thank you for all the support and the love today. Watchingthewatchers.locals is where we are going now. You can also sign up for our daily newsletter at robertgovea.com, as well as get any PDF that you want if you want to dive into the PDFs or just read a summary of what we're covering here. robertgovea.com is the place to go. Don't forget to get your Field of Greens at fieldofgreens.com, and you can use code Robert to save off your first order. Before we wrap it up, want to say thank you to our mods and our meme smiths, our friend Vienticus Prime, K-Bean in the house, and V, thank you for clipping today for us. We got K-Bean, Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek 909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, all helping down to keep this place nice and orderly and tidy. Shout out to our meme smiths, Geegum Geegum, Sleepy Dog Lee, and Nathan N810. Grateful to have everybody keeping this train on the tracks. Thank you for all of your help. But my friends, that is going to be it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We'd love to see you there, but if not, well, that's okay. We are going to be back here tomorrow to get into it all again, and I hope to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.